We did talk to Sun Tzu. We did talk to SBF a few times. We talked to Machinsky multiple times. The few calls I had with him was always in the middle of the night, super awkward.
It was really like a car salesman.
Even during, when everything was falling up and everything was blowing up with Celsius, Alameda coming to us and asking for $500 million, which that back then did alert us.
And I had the conversation, size. Don't spoil it. I have the conversation. Can I share with you guys word for word? I just found it on Telegram. Is that okay, Saif? I'll literally tell you exactly what happened through AC.
We talked about Sam Bankman-Fried. We talked about FTX, Three Arrow Capital, Celsius, the elephant in the room. You guys have inside knowledge dealing with these heavy hitters in crypto. Do you think Binance is 100% solid? Altcoin Daily, smash up the like button. Today we are joined by two leading founding members of one of the biggest cryptocurrency exchanges in the world, Swissborg, Alex and Cyrus Fazel. How are you guys doing today?
Great to
Very
see
well,
you.
super excited.
Great to have you guys
Super
both on. We met in Dubai at Future Blockchain Summit, and we were talking before this, and you guys were in conversations with FTX, Celsius, Terra Luna, Three Arrow Capital, the companies that all went under in the past year. You guys passed on them. And in today's video, we're going to talk about how to avoid the next FTX disaster and lessons learned from all of the Black Swans. Are you guys down?
Super pumped.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So before we jump into that, though, let's let the audience get to know you guys a little bit. Tell us about your experience in crypto, how you founded Swissborg, and feel free to brag a little bit.
Go for it, Alex.
Go for it, Sai. So, what's really funny with this, guys, is, so first of all, for all those who are watching, we're all brothers, right? So this is bromance 2.0. But, the funny thing between Cyrus and I is Cyrus was always the 0 to 1 guy. He was an incredible visionary. If I had to name his superpower, he would always predict future trends, which was very, very interesting. And I didn't have that mindset. I'm more of a 1 to 2 guy. So I like to take ideas. Even when I was little, when I used to draw things, I don't know if you remember, Sai, but I would like to draw, for example, a Dragon Ball character, and then I would just change the hair a little bit, or I'd put on different clothes. So I never had that talent of being able to invent things, but I love to refine things. But but Cyrus is essentially, thanks to him, I got into this crazy crypto space. But after you, Sai.
Yeah, I think so. One of the big thing of our family, which is quite funny, because we're a Persian Swiss family, and we lost it all. Like really, we did lost it all. And when you lose it all, your identity, your wealth that goes with it, you probably live a very interesting experiences as a family itself. And I think so that was really what, like, it's a bit like the first time if you trade and get wiped out, and it's usually a very good experience, because you'll then probably be able not to lose your private keys and not lose your assets or whatsoever, because you learn in a very hard way. And I think so this is the reason why we always, with my brother, we try to understand what is wealth, but more importantly, how can you accumulate wealth? How can you have your identity that will never change regardless of wars or whatsoever? And when you think about all of these different things, well, essentially blockchain and Web3 is a bit the answer for this. So that's been really our quest, I would say, of our life, is not only to be wealthy, but to have this sovereign identity that goes with it. And after working 10 years in hedge funds, banking and all that, we never really realized that there was not much that talked to us in terms of fairness, in terms of fun, in terms of community centric. So that was the whole big thing about Swissborg, is how to democratize wealth management by making it fun, fair, community centric. And since our ICO, which was 5 years ago, to today, we've been really working hard with our community to offer this vision and to offer applications that back this vision. I think so.
And I think, gents, like connecting our purpose, sorry to interrupt, but, having this Iranian background is a key moment for both of us. And I'll tell you why. Number one, our parents lost all their land, all their wealth was confiscated by governments, by centralized authorities, by institutions, whatever you want to call it, organizations. So already you can see that the unconfiscatable, censorship-resistant type model already made sense to all the wealth that we lost, like becoming nouveau pauvre, like new poor, because our family was originally wealthy in Iran. But also recently, guys, during the pandemic, my best story with Bitcoin that really made me love this from the bottom of my heart is my dad lost his job. Obviously, when you're Iranian, people got to understand when there's an embargo and all this political BS, which, by the way, I love to call Bitcoin an apolitical mechanism or apolitical asset. But you wipe off everyone from the grid, from every banking system, from every bank account. And the only way where we could help my dad during the pandemic, who lost his job as well because he was doing import export, was to send him Bitcoin. And then he would go to the local Sarafi, and he would exchange his Bitcoin to the local Tuman. It was literally, guy, the only way to bypass sanctions and help my dad provide to my dad so that he can just put food on his plate, pay for electricity, and survive during the pandemic where he couldn't fly. So you can see it, guys. It's like full circle, very meaningful.
Last week I paid $2,500, Alex, for his dentist. Yo, you owe me $1,200, and I sent it with USDC.
Oh no!
Real story, guys.
You can send stables as well too. That's true.
The stables work even with dentists over there. It's crazy. It's funny how blockchain has great applications. Yeah.
Totally. And that's a great story. I mean, you really see the need for Bitcoin to be able to avoid that and help your family. But Swissborg, it's not in America, but globally, it's one of the largest exchanges in the world, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have our big guys here in Europe and in Switzerland. What we've been able to do is to aggregate multiple different exchanges, enable people to buy and sell at the best prices. We've been able to bring as well the whole DeFi part, the staking, with really providing transparency reports to understand where the yield is coming from. I think this is very important, and trying to bring different layers that enable people to manage their wealth the most simple, secure way. And that's really what Swissborg is bridging the off-chain world, so the traditional fintech, and I would say the Web3 world, so the all on-chain wherein and how you combine both of the best worlds. Yeah.
Exactly.
Did you guys mention that? Did you guys realize that my brother didn't mention CFI or DeFi, but he said on-chain and off-chain? And I think that's a really key point, because a lot of people think that on-chain is automatically DeFi, which is not true at all, right? So the real DeFi is Bitcoin, right? That's real decentralization. Ethereum is also there, but not many other players are true DeFi. So that's why we like to say, we combine both on-chain.
Speaking about the DeFi versus CeFi, CeFi is why crypto got in trouble. Certain centralized companies is why we entered one of the worst bear markets ever. You're a peer in this space. So let's take it to 2020, 2021, maybe 2022. You were having conversations with some of these guys just as peers. What red flags did you see in maybe like the FTXs or the Celsiuses or the 3ACs?
Yeah, absolutely. So like kind of the stories I like to share, guys, is I kind of explain traditional finance as the grandpa from the village who's wise with experience, but he's done some naughty things, while DeFi is his toddler nephew, and they really need to, right, rather than fighting or yelling at each other or being rebellious and saying, hey, grandpa, you're a baby boomer, you don't get it, I'm cool, I'm rebellious. We really think that things can be learned from both worlds. And I'll let Cyrus talk about some of the conversations. One thing I do want to point out is it wasn't necessarily CeFi, but I think due to human error, human greed, and not the technology itself. So it's really, that's one angle to it. But there's so many comparisons. I feel like what happened to us, as you guys said, in the past 2 years is almost 20 years of mistakes through traditional finance. So Terra USD is kind of like the subprime crisis when you look at the poor collateral and the way it was stacked up through primary and secondary markets. Then, as you guys know, Celsius, I don't know if you guys know, but in Lebanon, there's a very similar story where if you create a banking account and your savings account, they would give you 15% yield. But the problem is when the Lebanese lira actually was fluctuating, that killed the APY, and the collateral actually damaged this very high yields that were not sustainable. So it was very similar to Celsius in some ways. And then of course 3AC is the typical long-term capital management, guys know, over leveraged, which is, again, that happened in traditional finance, and FTX is a bit of a Bernie Madoff story, right? So I feel like, we could have avoided these mistakes, guys, if we weren't so rebellious and constantly fighting with TradFi and maybe learning a few lessons here and there. But anyway, sorry to go on a tangent, but I thought it's cool to kind of show that, sometimes the toddler, even though cooler, should kind of listen or learn from some of his grandpa's mistakes.
Totally.
And I think so, to couple to that, I think so, as mentioned, we did talk to Sun Tzu, we did talk to, SBF a few times. We talked to Machinsky multiple times, and we talked to Voyager, Eric, very great people, by the way, the Voyager team. I still believe that they were unlucky, and they were really cool people, to be honest. I think so the three others were definitely probably nice people, but they had that same character that I've seen multiple times since the debut of my career in 2007. And when I saw, then I worked for 8 years in hedge funds, and you could see that same pattern, which is that, yeah, people just trade to trade and get numbers to make performance, and you can make performance with certain strategies for a certain amount of time until the Black Swan hits. And I think so that has to do a lot of what has happened here. I think that anything that goes to arbitrage usually works extremely well until it blows up. And you see with the Condor strategy with options, and I've seen that so many different times. But the biggest disbelief, which I think so is a bit sad coming from the 3AC and all these guys, that beautiful, the GBTC trade, everyone was doing it until you should never do it. It's like UST, everyone got into it, but probably a lot of people knew it was going to blow up eventually. And I think so the biggest problem of what I've seen here is people living the dream and the hopium. But more importantly, the biggest flaw, what I saw, is three things. First is, a yield is not a yield. If you don't know where the yield is coming from, you are the yield, right? That's what we all agree on and we all say, right? And back then, talking to Voyager, talking to all these different CeFi guys, Celsius whatsoever, they're like, oh, we're all doing DeFi. I'm like, okay, but we don't see your wallets. We know everyone's wallets. So we know, like, for example, who's doing
Alameda.
DeFi and who's not doing DeFi, because it's very easy to follow these guys, right? That's what we all do in crypto, right? We follow Alameda's wallet. Everyone knew which was Alameda's wallet. We knew pretty much what they were doing in DeFi and all that. But then when you see that Celsius is saying, like, yeah, we're big in DeFi, I'm like, nah, you're loaning your capital for people to doing margin trading. And I'm not saying this is a wrong business. This is probably still a good business. Kraken does it extremely well. And Kraken has not blew up, by the way. And I don't think so. Kraken's ever going to blow up, to be honest. They might have faced different issues with the SEC whatsoever, but it's a very credible business, and they know how to liquidate their positions. They're in the game for a long time. So I think so that was one of the big problems first that we were seeing. And we were always asked by many of these guys, even during, when everything was falling up and everything was blowing up with Celsius, Alameda coming to us and asking for $500 million of loans and things like that with Ethereum. We're like, no, man, we're not going to lend any of our money right now, which that back then did alert us to some extent. We're like, okay, why are they asking us to lend them money if they're buying out all these different companies?
Now, who were you in conversation with at Alameda? Was it Caroline, Trabuco?
There was few people. There was Ramnik and 3 other people that there was SBF at some time, but then when the whole, I would say we were quite in contact until May-ish with these guys, and then a little bit less after.
And they asked you for a loan, and they didn't want to collateralize it, or how did that conversation work that you're like, I don't think so?
The conversation was like less than 10 minutes. It was like, guys, can you loan us some Ether? We're like, no, okay, bye. It was as easy as that. They didn't go further than that. They're like, but if you want to invest in our company, because back then we were doing a fundraise too. So, and they were interested. That was where the initial conversation was, as SBF and myself had many talks about, him investing into Swissborg. First was the token, then he was like, oh, he wants some shares. Then we were like, oh, we're not doing essentially shares. So it was like, oh, I'm not interested anymore. So I said, well, we still have tokens, and the tokens, they were not interested. That was back in 2020, then 2021. And then 2022, we had less conversation essentially. But yeah, the second problem that I would say that a lot of people were facing here is then they were doing the same, that lending it to 3AC, which, by the way, I still think that 3AC did a lot of cool stuff. They wanted to invest into us, by the way, in May. That was weird as well. This then blew up and we didn't talk to them anymore. They were doing a lot of smart things, but again, they were providing a yield, and they were not giving like a fund structure, which any fund manager would give.
And I had the conversation, size. Don't spoil it. I have the conversation. Can I share with you guys word for word? I just found on Telegram. Is that okay, Sai? If I cut you off real quick,
Please.
I'll literally tell you exactly what happened in 3AC, and this is pretty funny. So May 3, 2022. Thanks so much for the call. I'll mention his name by respect. Do you have any documentation on your yields for corporate accounts? Hi, Alex. We don't have any documentation as all, as we only face institutional clients and they don't need documentation. So there's a big LOL there, right? That's the beginning of the conversation. Usually we face the counterparties that have yield products that face retail. So we like the B2B2C model. I guess that doesn't help though. Can always hop on a call in the future. So I was like, okay, let's just keep in touch, right? Fast forward to June 1st, 2022.
And who are you talking
hey guys,
to right now?
This is a 3AC, one of the main guys at 3AC.
Okay.
So fast forward a little bit, this is now June 1st, 2022. And I don't know if you guys remember, but the DeFi yields all of a sudden normalized. So we used to be the cool cats offering really high DeFi yields. We had 34% on USDC with quite low risk. But then, as you guys know, right, the whole DeFi yield thing is moved towards real yield. And now all of a sudden we're struggling, right? We're having like 3-4%, and the community was very unhappy. But it was coming from DeFi, so we didn't have any options. So then we follow up on June 1st, 2022. And I'm like, so just for you to better understand, if you don't have documentation, could you at least send us your strategy so we can look at it? And he essentially says that we have a delta neutral strategy that's trading on options. So as Cyrus was saying, guys, right, the 3 lessons for yields is if it's too high and constant, if it's regular, then it's likely to fail. If you do not know your yield, you are the yield, the second one, and trading is not yield. That those are 3 things that I think we need to really make sure people understand that.
That's the most important. Like if you're investing into multi-strategy quantitative option hedge fund, that's fine. You're paying 2%, 20% performance fee, and you know what's your risk, and it doesn't matter, and you know what's your liquidity as well, right? Celsius in the beginning, they were not that liquid. I think so. They were like 3 weeks. They didn't really have a real thing, but the guy was like, we're not super liquid. And then they're like, yeah, but these Swissborg guys or these guys, they're giving that. I'm like, well, we're giving staking and yield farming. It's on Aave and Compound and different other things. We could even be liquid within hours, right? Or in seconds. It's those things are liquid. And I think so. This is where it started to slip around. It's like we're doing absolute return based on margin trading, option trading, a lot of different quantitative strategies. And then, which I don't know, I just saw the CafeZilla. It looks like actually it was more Ponzi schemes than I don't know if it's true or not. I have no clue about that. But still trying to offer higher yields for just bringing more AUM. And we definitely suffered a lot. Everyone was like, "Oh, you guys at Swissborg, you guys, you suck. You only give us 5%, and Ether, those guys gives us 15." Or like. Yeah, but man, there's no free Rusk.
Did you guys feel FOMO like it was working
Massive.
for a while?
Oh yeah. It's the worst sensation, because you're building the best thing possible, and you're everyone's flying from your platform because people still believe that the other risk is better, and
I do have an actual specific part that I think justifies why we do this, guys. Why people still look for high yields and good opportunities. for me, the way I break down the crypto demographics, the average person, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, it's someone where in terms of wealth is more like in the middle class. So middle class wealth, very high literacy because they're learning a lot and they want to make wealth, high motivation as well because they really want to make wealth. So if you take those components, right, you think about someone who's middle class, high literacy, high motivation, they're seeking for life-changing gains, while the rich people are looking more to preserve their wealth, right? It's almost like a cross on a curve, right? So and I think that's why, right? Which unfortunately, and then on top of that, the degens and DeFi, not everyone has come from a traditional financial background where risk mitigation, risk is really ingrained into your brain. But I don't know. I think that's probably the excuse on why people are looking for these type of opportunities. So nothing wrong against them. It's just it was a really hard time for us.
No, there's an elephant in the room we need to talk about. There's an elephant in the room we need to talk about. But before I ask you this question, going back to Sam Bankman-Fried, in your conversations or indirect dealings with Sam Bankman-Fried over the years, am I correct in saying that you thought there was some shady stuff going on, but did you ever think there was direct fraud?
No, I was even 100% sure there wasn't direct fraud because I knew that this guy was going to be a politician. So why would he go fraud? Why would he want to fraud? I think so, which happens to a lot of kids, right? Is that you get to clean your room and sometimes you put some toys under your bed, right? And then maybe suddenly one day you start playing with matches, it gets a little bit on fire, and then you start doing stupid shit. And I think so that's what happened. The guy was super smart, but not like he didn't have a track record. He did some arbitrage between Korea and Japan, like everyone was doing back then, ourselves as well. I even asked Alex back then, it's like, do you want to do Swissborg or do you want to set up a fund? Because we can make $1 billion just you going to us sending Bitcoin and you selling it on Bitflyer, changing your yen into dollars, going back and doing that loophole and all. Everyone knew it. And then Korea was even bigger, it was 5% spreads, right? So he didn't have such a big, I would say, experience of an investment manager. And I think so eventually it caught up to him that he was trying to cover position by position and then, putting other people to make sure that he's going to play this out. And then he thought that FTT was the token that is the new Bitcoin and you're able to get even higher leverage. And then it goes to the Madoff, right? You start to believe into your lie and eventually, well, there's a guy who turns out that he's not your friend and he says that you're going to blow up and that's what Binance and CZ did, right? So I don't think so he wanted to get there. It's just that ego, very similar to long-term capital management that mixed up with with Madoff himself. The few calls I had with him was always in the middle of the night, super awkward. I was like, why do you call him at 3 o'clock in the morning? And he's like, oh, it's a Sunday, it's good for Sunday. So he had weird things going on. So, but it looked like more like a HTTD type of guy, a little bit like me, but like 10 times worse. And someone was too big for his boots.
By the way, guys, I just found one of the last messages from 3AC from that conversation we talked about earlier. And on June 3rd, 2022, which I believe is a month prior to blowing up, they asked to borrow ETH, USDC, and Bitcoin from us, offering us 3% APR on Bitcoin, 5 on ETH, and 15 on stables. So that was 1 month before 3AC actually blew up. So,
and what did you think?
So rather than trying, it's really funny that I see it now, right? Because I didn't really revisit it that much. But since you guys said, let's talk about the crap that happened last year so we can learn lessons from it, right? I'm actually thinking, oh my God, I could have seen this earlier if I was paying attention.
And why didn't you give it to them? Because they didn't give you any due diligence with that?
Yeah, no, I think so, the way they were selling things. Yeah.
But sorry, just to make
clear,
the way
they were selling things, Austin, is that it was really like a car salesman. Like, they didn't want to provide number one any like strategy or any clear information. But on top of that, their main line was, hey, we're the biggest lender in the entire industry. You know, everyone lends from us. And they would just put the name of the people. So they would use the, you know, the some sort of social proof tactic to persuade us, right? But that's the same line. Hey guys, we're the biggest lender in the industry. Look at all the companies we're working with. And that was the same line coming back and back again, trying to make us look like months. But you know, obviously,
Again,
luckily
I
we
think
didn't
so.
work.
Why we didn't invest is that it was an investment. It wasn't lending or yielding, right? You don't lend money to money managers. That doesn't exist. You invest into a fund. It's as clear as that. It has an investment mandate, has a fund, feeder fund, maybe in Europe or in Delaware for the States. And then you have a master fund that's in the Cayman. It's the old business for 25 years old. It's nothing new. And I would have invested into the fund and give them, you know, they would make 2% and 2% management fees, 20% performance fees. But like giving the funds of our users there, it's just impossible. It's not even legal for ourselves. First, second, it would never match our liquidity. Third, it would never match the risk of what we want to give to our users. And the third is just that it's not on our mission. Our mission is not to give money to hedge fund managers, is eventually to decentralize the world. And for that, DeFi, these protocols such as Aave, Compound, PancakeSwap, and Uniswap are not maybe the best 100% decentralized, but they are leaning towards our mission. And I think so that's why we never lended. Same to Celsius. They were very like, oh, we're going to give you the best yield and all of that. And the saddest story of this was when we finished the talk 2049. I think so, it was in April in London. And I was saying, well, this is what's going to happen to DeFi. Is that it was a picture from 2007 that it was coming from the subprime 2008 when the subprimes happened. The economists did a very nice thing on talking like what was CDO squares and where it was coming from and all these mortgage-backed securities and all of that and the flipping, and that's how the economy fell in 2008, right? And I said this is exactly going to happen to DeFi, because right now people are patching together products that don't work, don't have the same liquidity, don't have the same risk. And if one falls and blows up, then other ones are going to fall and blow up. And that's what always happens. And the guys from Nuri in Germany, that was a really sad one. So Nuri was a really one of the coolest European exchange, and at the same time like a wallet for credit cards. We were at talks with them and they're like, oh, how are you doing your DeFi? We're like, oh, we do it all by ourselves. And they're like, oh, do you do it for other companies? We're like, no, we just do it for ourselves, but copy our wallets, do the same thing if you want. And they're like, oh, no, we don't have a team for that, unfortunately. That we're going to give our money to Celsius. And I just made a face and like, you know, and they're like, well, what's your face? I'm like, I wouldn't go. It's not, I don't trust the fact that you don't know where your money is going, and you don't know where the yield is coming from. That is a recipe for disaster. And 2 months later, it was fucking horrible. These guys got caught in and they're now bankrupt. And it was a 6-7 years company in 2014. So even more 8-year-old company, one of the oldest European one. And there's so many more examples that, because people always think about Celsius, how they blew up people's fortune directly, but a lot of their money was actually B2B as well. And that had a lot of repercussions on a lot of, you know, other citizens around the world.
By the way, Aaron and Austin, just real quick, Cyrus just dropped some alpha there. So you can literally follow Swissborg's yield strategies by yourselves, guys. So you don't have to use our products. This goes against our business interest. But and the reason why I think it's a great idea to do that, especially from the US, is, you know, Swissborg is really focusing on risk first. And the way we do the risk assessments, it's really amazingly done. So it goes through our code experts who go all the way from GitHub. It goes to the platform's code as well. Then it goes through smart contract developer risk. Then it goes through the quants. So the system we put in place, it's amazing how much work is put into trying to mitigating this risk. And there's everything from they'll score hey, do you guys have the source code availability? Is the front UI pointing to the correct smart contracts? What about the admin risk?
So maybe I can continue. So admin risk, team risk, we talk to the teams as much as we can, look at the token, we look at the liquidity of the tokens, we look at the pool, the max size of the pools. So we really look through like 8 different risk metrics. We score them on a daily basis. We try to really as well do ongoing due diligence to make sure that like whenever there's updates, whenever there's things that change, if TVL changes whatsoever, we really monitor all this risk. And yeah, we love doing that. We have a lot of people at Swissborg here, 200 people, and we have quite a big DeFi team.
As we're getting to our last couple questions, I have one more topic I wanted to cover. I alluded to this a couple minutes ago. We talked about Sam Bankman-Fried. We talked about FTX, 3 Arrow Capital, Celsius, the elephant in the room. You guys have inside knowledge dealing with these heavy hitters in crypto. Do you think Binance is 100% solid, or what's your experience?
We're trying to get our token listed there for 5 years, and we haven't managed. So I don't know if I should. I don't know if I should be truthful or not. I saw CZ recently, and I really have strong respect for what they've built. I really believe that. Born out of an ICO and being able to service so many users around the world in a non-regulatory fashion, I still think that's it's super cool as a person. I really, 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 my props to CZ and the entire team, and especially doing that is initially out of Singapore and then in as well China. It's a really huge thing to do. So for that reason, I think so. The guys that done this, congrats. Then now what's going forward, there's definitely some things that I mean, we trust Binance. We are aggregated with Binance. So that's one thing for sure. They do play some like dodgy things, which is not really cool. There's this whole risk that's going on with BUSD. We know that their chat gateways is being cut more and more. So those have some risks. We know that, the solvency, it's something that they've really pushed to show how big they are. We're seeing that today, most of all the exchange from sexes is actually on Binance. So will they be here in the future? I'm pretty sure. However, I'm the only thing I'm a bit worried about, and I think so even CZ himself already agreed on this, is that they are centralizing a lot of power into what is happening in crypto. And what we saw recently with things being supported on BNB chain and on Ethereum, how they are getting out of Circle, want to get out the fight between Circle and their BUSD, and how they could take sides of this business and eventually centralize a lot what we're doing here. And that's where I'm a bit more afraid, somewhere on the philosophical and making sure that Binance does believe in the decentralized philosophy of crypto. And I think as well, it's always hard to know who are the shareholders, where is the company based, things that we, for example, are exactly on the opposite. We really try to become as neutral as possible. Very Swiss and boring maybe for that, but I think so. It's very important to be neutral when you're in the exchange or in business in general. And then you really have to push, decentralization as its core. But besides that, I'm pretty sure Binance will be here for long. And
and probably the biggest risk, I mean, I have great respect for CZ as well. I think he did some crazy things, and it's really hard, guys, right? Because you can do it the way like Swissborg, like Cyrus was saying, the Swiss boring way, where you KYC every single person from the very first ICO person, community member, or you just break all the rules when there are no rules, actually, right? You're not even breaking the rules because there's no regulatory framework for crypto at the time. So the guy just goes running, right? He just goes running. I can do a few naughty things as a kid, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, when someone comes, an adult comes and says, hey, bad boy, you shouldn't be doing that. You can simply say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And, you can play the innocent card. But in the case of Binance, right, they just went running and made so much money, where a lot of the banks have built themselves up the same way, right? And once you have lots of capital, then you can work on the regulatory side, hire the best lawyers in the world, and defend you. Because at the end of the day, there were no clear regulations, so don't punish me or don't point the finger at me. So it's either that way, or you do it the Swissborg boring way, where you KYC the first member from the ICO onwards, right? And our growth was a lot slower, obviously, than a Binance. So there are two ways of doing it. But what I worry the most for Binance, what I worry the most about Binance is being scapegoated. That's what I worry about, guys. If there's one of the regulators that really wants to flex his or her muscles and really try to scare the industry, they will definitely go after the biggest fish, right? You know, when you have a bad kid in class and he's making a mess or he's doing some things, you know, you're definitely going to try to punish or call out the bad kid first, or the strongest kid, so that the others follow, or same thing for anything, you know, in life. So I'm worried about the scapegoating, and I think Binance are smart enough to realize that they need to invest in DeFi, real DeFi protocols, and start really investing in different type of very promising projects, or build their own projects that are a little more suited to the regulators. Because, you know, you can't just go out there and buy an exchange in Japan, a shell company that has a license, but then connect it to the Binance order books. It doesn't work like that, right? Like, the regulators don't accept that. You can't just buy licenses. Oh, I'm going to buy a bank in Albania because it's cheap, and then I'm going to kind of bring that volume to the Binance that's based in Dubai, that used to be, you know, in Singapore. It won't work. Just like in the US, right? You guys saw with Binance US, they cannot have a backdoor for the Binance world or the exchange. So I think that's the thing that I worried about the most. And even some of my friends here in Dubai, they're concerned about that as well, the regulatory crackdowns and potentially being scapegoated.
Appreciate it. So they shared their assets recently, proof of reserve, proof of assets. There's some question on liabilities, but in your opinion, Binance is okay. They're solvent.
And if they're not solvent, we're going to probably go for crypto winter forever. Or for a long time at the least. That's for sure. But yeah, I think so. More transparency, I think so, and more regulation will probably change. And I'm sure Binance will make the right move. They're already doing it, and they're making a lot of efforts on this. And you know, the day we are starting to go into security tokens and all these aspects, that there's more than just buying and selling crypto and offering cooler products and all that, you will need to be more regulated. And if you're not, well, then essentially it's going to be more and more complicated to offer these cool things, right? So, for example, Swissborg, right now we're doing our Series A. It's our community that's investing in it, 14,000 people. It's amazing. We raised $16 million so far. This is eventually going to be a token, right? And the token itself is that if you're not regulated, you don't have a security token exchange license, well, then you won't be able to distribute that. And you're going to see more and more companies that are probably going to tokenize their shareholder of their company. And for that, well, you need all these licenses. So that's where I'm going to see maybe, you know, was very interesting, like in the hedge funds. It reminded me of the hedge funds. You see a lot of hedge funds growing very rapidly, and some of them growing down, and then some rapidly going down if you look at the last 20 years. And of course, some have been big and always been big. But if you remember Austin and Aaron back in 2017, do you remember what was one of the biggest exchange?
Remind me.
Cryptopia. That was a small one.
Cryptopia, that was one. It was not the biggest, but it was definitely a big one. Other ones?
Bitfinex.
By the way, Bitfinex, right? That's true. That was still a one. But Bittrex was quite a big one.
Bittrex, yes, dude. I had an account.
Not that big anymore. If you look at one of the biggest one was the one that Justin Sun bought out. What's it called? No, the other one. It was done in the States by a French guy. Anyways,
that's not in the States. You're talking about Mount Gox. You're talking about Mount Gox?
No, that was in Japan. No, not Mount.
Yeah,
but there was different other exchanges that grew and then reduced their activity, and you see that all in all. And I think so. There's still a lot of chances that we will see another one grow much more, and some other ones that will essentially shrink their activities due to multiple different business issues, I would say.
Gentlemen,
can I share with you one thing?
Alex, You take it.
Guys,
Share with us.
Yeah. So, for the DEXs and also for all the sexes out there, right? The proof of liabilities have to be some sort of external audit, right? To see if you have any sort of, collateral or leverage that's not on chain, or maybe some of your money, some of your yields are coming from these mortgages or some, high risk loans or stuff like that, right? So that's one thing I would love to have, proof of liabilities on chain, so audited, but also stamped on chain. I think that could be a massive step forward. But my ultimate dream, guys, when it comes to that good old grandpa, Uncle CFI, Uncle TradFi that talks to his little nephew DeFi is to avoid, number one, everything that's happening in DeFi today. Like last month alone, we had another $130 million in hacks in DeFi. And those things need to stop, right? But since Incidap, there's been so much money lost. And I think that could be avoided if we look at some of the risk assessment or the risk evaluation systems that we have from TradFi. But, I think really that the most beautiful thing about combining the on-chain and off-chain worlds, that my brother always used to say, like, I feel the urge to merge the on-chain and off-chain worlds, is really from the fundraise, not going through the VCs, right? Not going through the VC model, doing it through the community, a fundraise, so that rather than having 4 or 5 companies or funds having, thousands of people. Because that's one thing, like if you're an on-chain project, but you raise through 4 to 5 VCs, then you screw yourself over, because then your governance is centralized as well. And decentralized governance is one of the most important tools in DeFi, right? So if you raise funds through limited amount of people, then you're screwing up your decentralized governance, at least for the first 3, 6, 9 to 12 months. And you guys have seen that, right? With Poly Capital, right? With Compound.
Mm-hmm.
So I really think that what needs to be decentralized, it starts all the way from the fundraise, because then that transfers into governance. You can still try to grow the protocol and decentralize afterwards, but having that decentralized governance is key. Non-custodial or semi-custodial, guys, where maybe it's non-custodial, but you have some sort of centralized vault where you can store your private keys. So if I die tomorrow and Austin and you are my cousins, maybe we can have some sort of multi-sig where you guys can still sign it for me and then unlock all the funds, right? And then obviously execution needs to be on chain. We still need that interoperability because Bitcoin, Ethereum, it's very complicated, right, to do this on chain. Still, ERC20 is amazing, but I still feel like DeFi is in its point where you have these little tribes around the world, but there's no bridge or there's no plane to fly over to the next country or island. You're stuck in your island, and you have to take this raft boat, with sharks and stuff all around you that are going to eat you alive, right? That's the way I see DeFi still on the execution side. So that interoperability will be absolutely key with the cross-chain features. And then it's beautiful, right? Because once you hit that model, when you have this corporate model where some of us, right, when we love a brand, let's say we love Nike or whatever, or Spotify or Netflix, we're just a user of a product, but we're not an investor. We're not a part of the governance. We're not a part of the product development, and we're not a part of and of course, on top of that, we're a user. So I think, as you guys see, like, I don't know if the DAO is really, really feasible through automation. That sounds like a big challenge, if that's realistic or not. And correct me if I'm wrong, Austin Aaron, but I think the pyramid not only should be inverted, but it should be opened so that really you can really have a community led and community centric and community driven company. It's the dream for me.
I think that's a great way to end it. Appreciate you guys coming on the show today. Links to their personal Twitters down below. Give them a follow. If you're a part of the 60% of our audience who is outside of America, go check out Swissborg, linked below. Cyrus, Alex, give us final thoughts for the Altcoin Daily audience.
Yeah, I mean, continue to really pass on the love that you have for crypto, for Web3, decentralization, and that's the most beautiful thing. Especially right now, we know that we faced 2022 was a very difficult one. I think so. The beauty is that Web3 is not just going to grow from here, it's going to exponentially grow. And there's so much to be done. And yeah, your voice is heard by many people. And let's just accumulate the number of peoples to bring into the decentralization. And more than ever, I think so this planet really needs it, because if we're not leaning towards there, sooner or later, we're going to be trapped into something. There will be no exit doors.
Alex?
Yeah, beautifully said. And I have to say, guys, like Austin and Aaron, I don't FOMO or I don't fanboy very often, but when I did see you two guys, I did fanboy a little bit. I tried to keep my cool. But there are a few people that I met. I really respect you guys. You know, you guys, Coin Bureau, Ivan on Text are the guys where I kind of fanboyed, but I try to keep my cool. Come on, I'm 42 years of age. You know, I can't be like a little cheerleader. But I love what you guys are doing. I think you're the great face for this industry. And great representatives, great evangelists, ambassadors, educators, however you want to call each other. And you guys, and Eric Vouris, by the way. Eric Vouris, I think, is probably one of my favorite DeFi figures. I think he's probably the king when it comes to representing who we are. But you guys are the princes.
Wow, appreciate that. And you did keep your cool in Dubai. It was awesome meeting you. You guys were cool guys, and you know, happy to do this now. But thank you guys so much for coming on today.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Boom.